right. Hey, folks, we're here today to talk about customizing GPTs. I'm here joined by my colleagues and friends, uh, Dr. Matt Marino and Dr. Trey Vasquez. Matt, I'm going to start with you. Tell us today what we're going to be talking about and why it's important from introducing the webinar itself.
Sure. So we're going to talk about GPTs today and how they can be your friend. And GPTs allow you to take a vast amount of information and create a corpus of information that you can then go and query in order to get results very quickly and efficiently.
So I'm going to tag on to that and I'm going to say, look, it's time to use this AI to make your life easier and more efficient. We're going to show you today how to make a custom one that is designed specifically for your workflow. We're going to have a few caveats at the end and talk about privacy and security, but we're going to say this is an opportunity to play, and we're going to show you how to make hopefully your life better.
So what's important is people are associating the word GPT often with just ChatGPT, which is OpenAI's platform. But a generative pre-trained transformer is a large language model, and it can be used on any number of these. So whether you're using Claude or whether you're using Gemini or any of these other ones, you're going to have similar sort of ways to do this. It might not be exactly the same, but it can be generalized to any of these. So we're not trying to represent one GPT over another. We're just going to demonstrate what we know on a few, and then you can kind of go from there.
So Matt, you said you were going to give an example about K-12. So give us an example of how you would customize a K-12 GPT.
All right. So if we're in a school district, let's say I'm a special education teacher, I have a question about a district policy because I run into a parent and they ask me the question or they shoot me an email. How do I find that? Well, traditionally, you go to the website, you look through the website, you find that there's 30 different PDF documents in there that have been adopted by the board. They've been posted in a location, and you've got to go through and find the one that has the information to answer that question. The GPT allows you to take all of those files, put them in one location and create your own corpus. And then using that large language model, you access the corpus in order to get your question answered. Does that make sense, Trey?
It does. And what I hear you saying is that rather than going to an LLM and saying, please give me the answer to some question around policy or budget, and it's going to go out into the world and hopefully pick up information that is correct or incorrect, we don't know because we don't have control. But by creating your own custom GPT, you can train that information specifically, and that LLM is only going to tap in that data.
That's right. But sometimes with some GPTs, if you don't tell it to go other places, it will look at your corpus and then it will go outside and look for other information as well. So you need to be aware of that.
Now, Jamie, you actually have a great example that you used with a lot of colleagues across the country. Can you give us that?
Yeah, I can actually show it to you right now. So I developed this high leverage practice or HLP GPT actually for a class that I was teaching. And this high leverage practice GPT kind of takes the high leverage practices, which many in the education field know are research-based practices that really support outcomes for all kids, and especially students with disabilities. And so in order to teach this in a class, I simply went in and kind of created this GPT, gave it a corpus, and now it goes to that GPT. So if I even open it up here real quick, I can show people how it's actually made. I just kind of give it a name, I give it a little description, and then I give it some instructions for how I want it to behave. And these instructions not only tell it what to search, but also give it a bit of a personality, right? And then kind of tell it extra considerations for things that I've seen it kind of do wrong. And so I've kind of given it specific tasks. But the important part, as Matt was kind of saying, I then loaded it up with what's available on the open web around these high leverage practices, right? So, and then you can interact with it as you see fit. So This GPT, for instance, has been used by, I think, a few thousand people. And you can ask it questions that you might have, whether you're in a classroom or whether you're a pre-service teacher, in-service teacher, education leader. You can ask it questions like, help me teach students learn how to read in fourth grade. If I could type. And it's going to give you an answer, but kind of like what Matt was saying earlier, it goes to that corpus and pulls from that corpus. So the corpus we know on this one is tied directly into research. It's pulling from these open resources that are research based. And so you can see where it directly references these pieces. And if this was on policy of a school district, it would directly reference the policies. So that's just a real quick example. And I know in a few minutes we're going to go into more detail on how to actually build one of these, but this is a real quick example for how it works.
And so what I'm hearing both of you say is, training these custom GPTs, the critical component is the knowledge base or the information you feed it so that it goes specifically to those areas. Now, we're not limited by specific things. We have a whole lot of different types of GPTs that can be customized. For example, if you want to use this for lifestyle, you want to create a budget, you can feed it information about policies around budget. If you want to look at creating new types of images and videos, if you're a content creator, there are ways to inform your custom GPTs to use these certain resources that you use all the time, and it'll help support the development. For example, here at CIDDL, we have a logo that you can see in Dr. Marino's background. Well, we can tag that as part of any sort of A roll or B roll that we create for a video, or if we want to create an image for a document, it'll pull that information into that custom GPT, and then whatever output we're looking for, we can embed that. I also want to give a quick example around leadership. So one of the fortunate pieces of my history is I was able to lead several organizations around different policies. Oftentimes as a leader, you're dealing with human resources or HR. And one of the big issues that we deal with in HR is that there are a load of policies, whether you can hire someone, give them a raise, whether you have to stick to a particular budget. And there are oftentimes many questions leadership have with regards to HR policy. And so you can connect your custom GPTs to a library of policies that are at your institution, whether that be a K-12 or higher ed institution, or even your work institution. As long as they're public facing, you can incorporate those within your GPT and then ask it simple questions. And it'll then pull that information so that you can get an answer to your questions around HR.
Yeah. So, hey, let's get into some practical tips as we think about building these things. What are some practical tips that we want to share with everyone? Obviously, I'm going to start off by making sure that we use, obviously, resources that are openly available. We don't want to take anything proprietary unless you have access to a GPT system that is, available to your organization and has been secured for your organization. You just don't want to drop anything into it. You want to take things that are openly available. So like on that HLP GPT, like I stated, I took stuff that was openly available on the web and had it go through that and use the HLP website. But if your organization has an enterprise license to these things, then you want to maybe build some of these, like Matt was saying or Trey was saying, and take some of those policies and put it in there. But the idea is we want these systems to help work for us and make things easier. What are some other tips that we have?
So beyond the ownership around and the access to the data, we also want to make sure that we address the personal identifiable information, the FERPA related security type data. We don't want to put that into an LLM, especially if it's a free version or a personal paid version. Those things we want to make sure that we have clear data agreement sharing options that are with an institution. So for example, if your K-12 school district or your university are already partnered with an LLM such as OpenAI or Claude or even Gemini, Google, there should be a data sharing agreement that is in place. You should ask your IT professionals at your institutions to identify if you can access or use certain types of data. And then once you have a green light, feel free to use it. But I would just caution you on the personal stuff. Matt, what about you?
Well, I would say at the K-12 level, and I'm seeing this right now in one of the schools that I'm on the advisory council for, the teachers are all creating GPTs for their own classroom content.
Right.
And so they're taking the open source books, they're taking other reference materials that they find on the web, downloading them, and then loading all of those things into a GPT. So any kid in their class can go in and ask a question about it and then get detailed information on how to solve problems if they don't understand the content as the teacher presented it. I see this as an amazing way to differentiate instruction so that every single student is able to see a response in a way that makes sense to them.
Yeah, Matt, to that point, I mean, I didn't show, I'll show this real quick here. I think all of us have various GPTs set up. So I have a teaching assistant for a class that I have that comes up with ideas for how to actually support the class and do in-class activities, comes up with various things. And what's loaded in here, for instance, is a syllabus that I created and a kind of a description of the class itself. We also have one, here's another one I created for an in-class project that is MTSS or multi-tiered system of support instructional coach. And it's actually trained based on a case study that I use. So these are examples, of course, in higher ed, but they can translate into K-12, and having lots of these little GPTs set up around customized information and a corpus of information is quite useful for helping us think about what are the little assistants that we can use in life that I don't want it to go out and search the web and do a whole variety of things, but I really want it trained on a very specific corpus of information. They can give us a lot of good information as it's coming in.
And to
Great idea.
extend that, I would say teach your students how to build their own GPTs after you've got it figured out so that they can build GPTs that are going to provide them with the most meaningful information that they need to solve challenges in their lives.
Absolutely.
Exactly right.
Absolutely. And I would just say, as another takeaway, we want to make sure that you're consulting your colleagues, because one of the interesting things that we've noticed as a center is that when we talk to folks all over the country, they have amazing ideas. And so you might have some colleagues in your area who are doing some amazing things. Feel free to reach out, play. I think one of the pieces is sometimes AI is a little scary, but the reality is if you can play with it, you kind of demystify some of what's going on in the background. And I hope you can take some of these lessons that we're talking about and apply them to your situation.
Hey, and one more practical tip, because the other thing we've interacted with, and we've all learned this in our interactions, is that sometimes you're not getting the responses the right way. When you're interacting with it, you've trained it, you've taken a little bit of time to do that and provided a corpus, but it's not interacting the right way. So one of the tips I'll give is that the instructions you give it are meaningful. So when you think about the way you interact with it, and I guess I can kind of go back to it again, the way you go through and build these things, the way you go back and build these things, and those instructions that you actually gives. So this is the development copy of the GPT version, which I have 2 copies that I could test it on, right? So these instructions are actually very critically important for how you want it to behave. So for instance, you'll see I've got this one set up as a professor that's attuned to the needs of students with disabilities while being focused on all students and well connected with educators. But then the other thing is I've got an extra additional consideration, which I know these guys tease me because I use the word considerations quite a bit. But this consideration came actually from an email that I received, and I responded to it in a way because it was not highlighting the appropriate thing when it came to HLP 12. And so I had to go back and say, hey, specifically with HLP 12, do this. And as soon as I did that instruction and provide this instruction, I tested it again and it works perfectly. And I've tried it with other people. So those instructions, I will say, as a practical tip, are critically important. So if you're not getting the type of responses you want, go in and fine tune those instructions and then see what happens.
Another thing you can do, Jamie, that I've done personally is if it gives me something that I know isn't a correct response, I will then change the response, give it back to the GPT, and say, this is what I was hoping you would say to me. Learn from this and remember it. And those two key points, learn from this and remember it, will embed it in the memory of the GPT, and it will change subsequent responses.
My last tip is to say, don't be afraid to ask an LLM how to write a better prompt. You can ask it specifically, this is what I want to do, but I don't think I'm articulating the response or the request well enough. You can actually ask an LLM to say, can you help refine this prompt so it is a better outcome? And it will definitely give you a longer and more thorough prompt than I've ever written myself. And it usually ends up in a much better output than I would have originally.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think these are all really good tips. I think what we might do, because we've shown these a couple times already. I've shown the HLP GPT. Maybe we could just show them how to get started, and then we could do a quick wrap up and be done. How about that, guys?
Yep.
That sounds great.
Okay, so I'm going to show my screen again. And how do you build a GPT? Well, they're a little bit different whether you're in Gemini. So here's Gemini. And Gemini, what you can go in is just kind of create gems. They call them gems, and you could build a gem. Like here's a new gem in Gemini, and you can create these gems. Now there's like a simple gem, and then there's kind of more of a high-end gem. We're going to focus on these simple gems first. And very similar to what I showed you in the other one, it shows you how to build one right here. Just give it a name, a description, some instructions, a knowledge base, such as a corpus that you want to do. And that's how you build it in Gemini. Well, you're going to see something similar. So you can generalize this to other sort of GPTs. This is OpenAI's GPT. And you simply go into click on Explore GPTs, which is in the left hand column there. Click Create. And I have a $20 a month account. And you may need to have one to do these and different things. Or you may have an enterprise account that allows for this to take place. And you go into the configure thing. Again, you give it a name, give it a description, develop some instructions, maybe develop some conversation starters, like how do you want people to interact with it? Upload the files or the knowledge corpus that Matt and Trey talked about earlier, and then kind of give it the different things that you want to have it do, or even whether you recommend a model. And it'll create one. And here's what's interesting, because many of these GPTs and LLMs actually build in and have image generators. Once you start building this thing, it's going to suggest, can I build an image for you? And so that's a real sort of simple thing to do. But that's kind of how these things are built. I don't know, Matt, Trey, do you have anything else to add to this little demo?
I would certainly encourage people to go out there and play with it and then share it with your students and have them use it, because they'll probably figure things out that you didn't, and you can all learn from each other.
And I would just add, don't be afraid to change the instructions or the knowledge base as you evolve. The GPT will evolve with you. And so as you learn how to use these tools better, it'll become more and more robust with the more and more correct actions that you're asking it for.
Yeah, I
That's
think the
perfect.
biggest mistake people make is when and I saw my own children do this. The first time they interact with it, it didn't give them the exact response that they were looking for, and they walked away. And if you just walk away, it never improves. And so by working with it, it'll get better.
That's right. So as a wrap up, let's talk about some sort of key takeaways and recommendations. Number one, I would say is, you guys have both said it. I'm going to be the third to say it, which is go out and play. Go try to use these things, kind of bring your understanding to it, develop your AI literacy and fluency skills over time. What are some other key takeaways?
I would say you definitely want to check with your district IT folks around data sharing agreements. If you're using a district level or a enterprise type account, if you're using a personal account, just think about the personal identifiable FERPA data if you are going to interact with any of that, and to not share that kind of information.
I would say make sure your administration is on board before you start doing this in your classroom if you're a K-12 teacher, because some classrooms, they do not like the idea of their teachers showing them this, and no one wants that.
And finally, I would say if you're in higher education, preparing future teachers, this is an essential skill for future teachers to learn how to do. We need to actually build their AI literacy and fluency. And by teaching these things and integrating these purposely into the way we teach, and then demonstrating how to actually build these for themselves is going to help the future of all students. And that's what we're here about. So, hey, guys, thanks a lot. I think this will be great. And unless there's any closing words, I think we're good to go.
Have a great day, everyone.
Have a great day.